preview.
When we were starting the IXP, initially there were very few ISPs that were licensed to operate. However, all those ISPs had to still send their traffic through Telecom Kenya, the incumbent then, to be able to reach the external community. So eventually, after liberalization of the sector, and they were now allowed to get to operators' licenses, and that's what the license was called at that time. They needed to be able to separate their local traffic from the international traffic, just to be able to reduce the costs for satellite communication, because we didn't have fiber, and all the communication then was over satellite. So 6 ISPs came together and agreed that they would have a common neutral facility where they would exchange their traffic. So we went ahead and set up the exchange point, and the ISPs put in some money to help the process get started. However, they also sought assistance from Cisco, and Cisco was able to give us the gear that got us started. The first switch, the first router were donations from Cisco. And so the operators brought in their routers and plugged them into the switch, and yes, the local traffic was now being exchanged. And as soon as Telecom Kenya had that, they appealed to the regulator, and within a week, the exchange point was shut down. And so TESPOC went to court. And so it took exactly 1 year before we were able to open up the exchange point again. After the arbitration process, the regulator gave us a license, for which we were paying licensing fee like any other business entity, because they thought we were making money out of it. But TESPOC operates as a non-profit. And so to help us meet all those expenses, getting us off the ground, as the operators increased, when there were about 10 operators, they made a contribution of 200,000 shillings each, a minimum of 200,000 shillings each, to help us meet our operational costs, because we had to pay rent, we needed to pay staff. We had staff then already who were running the facility, and we couldn't, the funds that were coming in from 8 operators for the current port charges could not meet those overheads. And I think that helped us in terms of getting ownership from industry for the facility. And eventually we were able to pay off that debt in 2008. The other partners we got were entities involved in lobbying for internet policies, such like ourselves. Groups such as ISOC came in and were very helpful in getting us off the ground, because the kind of things ISOC did was helping us with training. We had to foot costs of training the engineers that were given to us to support members' activities at the exchange point. So the capacity building for that was heavily footed right from 2008 by ISOC. We also managed to get the European Union at one point came in to assist. The other global exchange points started showing interest in what we were doing, such as Lynx, NetNode, AMSIX. They began to pay attention to what we were doing, and they would help us from time to time with equipment or training. For us, it was a learning opportunity, and from whom we could learn how to develop our exchange point moving forward. We have got 3 locations in Kenya, and the 3 locations in Kenya run differently. One is a backup of the other 2, and we have a separate partner from Mombasa, from the Nairobi. So that way we also want to do a study on our own on how the impact of the different styles of running the exchange points and the impact it has on our kind of environment. The growth of the Kenya Internet Exchange Point at a rate of over 150% annually has attracted a lot of attention. The fact that Internet Exchange Point statistics are revealing that KXP is the fastest growing exchange point, or considered as one of the fastest growing exchange points globally, that attracts the attention of anybody who deals with exchange points. In addition, we've worked closely with ISOC and tried to share as much as we can with ISOC on what we are doing at our exchange point, so that then when another exchange point wants a model to adopt or to copy, they can copy ours. And anytime that there's been a need for someone to talk to the operators in a particular country, to explain to them how the association approach works, we have been available for that. We have shared our views with operators from as far as Angola, Malawi, DRC. We really share our experience because we have learned from other people's experiences, only that we adapted it to suit our environment. Actually, the IX in Kenya has significantly contributed towards human capacity training building, because we run a lot of training sessions. At least every 6 months, we have a session specifically on routing and switching. Many of the engineers are never aware that the way you route has an impact on how much of your international bandwidth you end up using, until we sit them down and we run them through it. And sometimes there have been situations where we've had to do it on a member-by-member basis. Because when you try to bring them together, nobody is going to share with you, oh, this is how we're doing it. But when you talk to them on a one-on-one, and you're able to tell them, you need to announce all your routes at the exchange point, so that then we are able to get as much traffic in as possible, and this is how you can do it, then they appreciate that and they try it out, and it wasn't. Tell them, just try it. If it works, well and good. If it doesn't work, come back to us and we'll find a different solution. They try it and it works. As more engineers go through the basic training and move to the advanced levels, the peering improves. The amount of traffic coming to the exchange increases. And those are the small quick wins we have, I think, that help us to keep our traffic growing at the exchange. We host a variety of domain name servers, the froot, the jroot, .ke. We are hoping to bring on board additional domain name servers, because these mirror servers become value adds to the members peering at the exchange point. Instead of the traffic going all the way to the .com server, for example, in the US, it gets resolved locally. We run a SAT. That is the most important value add we have right now, because it helps the service providers identify the problems they're having, the level of risk that exists on their network. And we give every individual member access to their own portal. We have an online portal, so individual members get access to it and are able to check as often as they want, if it is hourly, monthly, weekly, to know which IPs, because we're able to identify specific IP addresses that we have a problem. So which IPs they need to pay attention to. The other value add is a network time synchronization server that benefits the users of the exchange point facility. The time server is important because it helps to synchronize the time on communication going through the exchange point, and also helps the service providers synchronize the time on their networks. And because it's a global time synchronization server, it synchronizes the time in Kenya, the networks in Kenya, with that of the networks in other parts of the world. We publish the aggregate statistics of the traffic going through the exchange points, and it's possible for you to have access to the site and to look at what that has been over a period of time. We also give individual members their annual statistics. They have access to that and they're able to look at that. And not just for the traffic. We also have access to incidents on individual members' networks that we keep statistics of. And it's possible for you to look at your network and to see how many, in the last 1 month or in the last 1 year, what has been the average amount of, say, spam or botnets or open resolvers on your network. The Internet Exchange Point has significantly brought down the costs to operators because with traffic going through the exchange points as opposed to the international circuits, you find that a lot of the international capacity is freed up, and that has a significant impact because when it comes to the exchange point, our charges are very low. We keep the port charges at about $150 a month, and when you look at how much they would otherwise pay for the same amount of traffic on the international circuit, it would definitely be 10 times that amount. And we've seen with time that the costs have been transferred to the end users because the cost of internet in the cybercafe keeps coming lower. And the costs of internet access at homes is coming lower. You find more Kenyans are getting internet access to their homes, and there are more ISPs that now offering that as a core service, ensuring that homes are connected, schools are connected. It's getting much cheaper. And we are still doing everything we can as an exchange point to bring that much lower. And part of it is the partnership we have with Google. Because with the Google servers in Kenya, that means then the transit cost for the ISP to London when the other cache in Nairobi is down are much lower because they'll pick it from Mombasa because Google are going to pay in Mombasa. I think the X has contributed towards bringing in foreign investment in the sense that there are a lot of foreign entities that now see value in coming to set up businesses in Kenya, to set up shop in Kenya. And if it wasn't for how we handle the traffic at the Kenya Internet Exchange Point in terms of ensuring it's constantly growing and the value adds we bring in, entities such as Google would never have thought of Kenya as a destination. We are part of the East African Communications Organization, and through that organization we are working with the other countries within the East African region, which is Kenya, Uganda, Tanzania, Rwanda, and Burundi, to help them organize the exchange point. And so what has come out of that is that we have been able to work with the different exchange points by showing them our model, how we manage it, how we are able to sustain staff, because we started off with 1 staff and now we've got 7 staff. How do we do that? And what are the roles that these different staff play when it comes to duties and responsibilities at the exchange point? We've seen that there's a lot we are able to share, there's a lot we learn from each other. And once we come together that way, when an entity goes to the regulator, they have got a lot of information to benchmark their country against. And that benchmarking helps the governments make the right decisions. For a country that is starting out, important things that you should not overlook: get buy-in from the community. Get ownership from the community. Let the people who are going to be part of that exchange point own it. When they own it, it becomes very easy to move everything else along because there is already agreement that this is our shared facility and this is going to help us in 1, 2, 3, and the objectives become very clear. The second thing that someone starting off needs to do is to identify which growth plan you have in mind, because there are different ways of growing the exchange points. You find, like, if you're to compare the Kenyan exchange point with the Nigeria exchange point, the Nigeria exchange point may have fewer operators, but they have a significant number of global content providers. They got Google in before we did, and I was very jealous. my model was different. I wanted all the local operators in. And so in Kenya, we have 100% operator participation at the Kenya Internet Exchange points, which is a unique phenomenon. And we are hoping to now start bringing in the global entities. And that was the model we chose to grow by. So be clear on which way you want to go. Look at the different exchange points that there are and get enough information to make a decision on a clear growth plan. Thirdly, once you've decided which way you want to go, look for an exchange point that you can work with to help you get there. Because most of the established exchange points are willing to share that information and to share their experience and to let you know what you shouldn't try to do because it's already tried and proven. Trust is very important when you want to build a facility like an exchange point because operators must trust each other. Even if government is involved, the operators must trust their government to be getting involved in this effort for their good. Without trust, it will not be able to get far. Because you find like for the KXP, we have government involved and the operators are together and there's a lot of trust between the two. Why? Because government trusts the operators to do the right thing. A neutral facility is important because it is what will determine whether or not there is trust between the operators. And for a long time, we've had a problem with a neutral facility because we've wanted to move, but because we didn't have any data neutral facilities in Kenya, moving into the facility of another operator has been a big challenge. Members would rather we don't move. We struggle with the server room that we have, where the building owner has refused to allow us to make adjustments and keep it that way because there's a question of if we go into another operator, would that operator want to make money out of us? And how much access will we have? We currently receive traffic at the exchange point from different countries. And we have routes announced from 87 countries to be precise. Our goal as KXP, currently my vision is to make KXP the place where all the operators in Africa think of coming in to peer their traffic.